A service category is a provision that is designed to serve a specific need for people living with HIV. Depending on the purpose, service categories are divided into two types. Let's start with the first one. Categories that provide a direct medical need are called core medical services. For example, clinics that provide specialty HIV care may receive Ryan White HIV/AIDS Program Part A funds in a category called outpatient ambulatory health. Here are other Ryan White Part A or medical categories. There will not be time right now to explore each category in detail, but this presentation will introduce high-level information and the tools to explore further. Also, reach out to Planning Council membership and staff for additional information and support. Now, let's check out some points of interest. Many of the services on this list may be familiar to you, even if you do not know the official titles used by the Health Resources and Services Administration, which is often referred to as HRSA. It is important to note that many folks use culturally appropriate terminology because language is constantly evolving, while other systems evolve differently. And for the purpose of this video, we will stick with HRSA's language. Here is a good example of a core medical service category. Outpatient ambulatory health supports clinics that, among with other things, provide primary care to people living with HIV. And speaking of outpatient care, here we see the mental health and substance abuse service categories that the Planning Council allocates funding to. And here is the residential substance abuse service category that provides inpatient substance misuse care that the Planning Council does not allocate funding to. Why? We'll touch base on that in a bit. Early Intervention Services, which is often referred to as EIS, provides an introduction and sometimes re-engagement into HIV services. You may be familiar with Linkage to Care, which receives Ryan White Part A funding allocation in the EIS category. Here we have the 8 drug assistance program categories that are vital for people living with HIV and is funded by Ryan White Part B. Commonly referred to as ADAP, our Part B partners also use the title State Drug Assistance Program, or SDAP. Taking note of this is important for a few reasons. Any small consideration to address words intentionally promotes future discussions that honor the HIV community and the individual, that ultimately reduces stigma. Every nudge helps. We will talk about stigma and explore the evolution of language in future videos. Of course, the services listed here are much more than just a title. Medical case management, which, for Part A Transitional Grant Area, includes a continuum of service categories that include medical and non-medical case management, health education and risk reduction, care navigation, and referral services. You may have a case manager working at an entity that receives funding from Ryan White, Part A, Part B, and other funding sources. Become acquainted with all of these categories, even those that may not receive Part A funding. And remember, all Planning Council members are encouraged to continue studying Part A service categories to build operational fluency and inform the decision-making. There are barriers that prevent people living with HIV to fully engage in medical care. Assistance with paying bills for essential needs, housing costs, and transportation are examples of what is provided by support service categories. Another support service category helps to fund opportunities for people living with HIV to connect and learn from the valuable life experiences of their peers. Let's talk about that and the categories that provide support services. Psychosocial support, or what many Planning Council members refer to as social support, emphasizes the importance of connection and acknowledges the value of individual experience. Social support is highly prioritized by the Planning Council, citing a recent needs assessment survey. Citing a recent needs assessment. Citing a recent needs assessment. Citing.
Cite your case. Provide source information or data when making a case for change. Decisions are driven by data. The Planning Council never makes a decision based on gut feelings or conjecture.
Citing a recent needs assessment survey that people living with HIV gain essential information from peers. Focus group and Planning Council discussions support this importance. Later on in this video, we will reflect on how the path of the HIV journey was changed from patient to participant by the advocacy of people living with HIV that continues to this day. Now back to the list. Here we have 2 categories that are big priorities. Housing services, which assists with keeping folks housed, and emergency financial assistance that provides help with paying essential utilities and other support. Let's keep in mind that in many cases, these different parts of the Ryan White program work together, including these two categories that receive funding support from Ryan White Part B. Linguistic services that assist folks with accessing language assistance that may include the translation of documents. And here we have other professional services that includes legal services that support people living with HIV. This may include assistance with living wills, or disability concerns, or covering the cost of identification cards. Let's look at this one here. Food bank and home delivered meals. It does just that. You may have been to an agency that has a food bank, and many people are aware of meal delivery services that has lifted up our HIV community for so long. If you want more information, check this out. Service categories come with a set of instructions that establish how agencies should provide that service. Service standards define expectations of service delivery that include intake and eligibility requirements, personnel qualifications, and client rights and responsibilities. Standards describe minimum requirements that give the agencies the opportunity to exceed those expectations and build upon their own program. These standards of care provide guidance to contracted entities and are referenced by Denver HIV Resources, often referred to as DHR, during site visits. In collaboration, DHR and the Planning Council review and revise the standards for each service category. This work takes place in the Planning Council's Service Standards Committee. The revision process creates opportunities to benefit from the expertise of people living with HIV who receive that service, providers, the grantees who provide the service, and DHR, the grantors who have participated in site visits and have information on agency operations. This will take you to the current service standards. And this will take you to the Planning Council's calendar. Feel free to join any meeting listed here, including the Service Standard Committee.
So far, we have reviewed how the service categories need to have service standards to guide how they are implemented. In fact, the service categories are at the center of many of the responsibilities of the Planning Council.